Biographies and autobiographies always make for interesting reading. And during the summer, I found myself picking up once again the interesting autobiography of the late Reverend Dr. Billy Graham, aptly entitled Just As I Am. He tells of his journey from being a humble farm boy in North Carolina to being a preacher to many thousands, indeed millions, all over the world. And in his book, he writes this: I have often said that the first thing I am going to do when I get to heaven is to ask, why me, Lord? Why did you choose a farm boy from North Carolina to preach to so many people, to have such a wonderful team of associates, and to have a part in what you are doing in the latter half of the 20th century? I have thought about that question a great deal, but I know also that only God knows the answer. Words which could well have been written in a similar vein by a humble fisherman who, as he journeyed through his life, became the founder in many respects of the early church. I'm referring, of course, to Peter, one of the most prominent and exciting characters who we read of in the New Testament. Peter could well have had said, I have often said that the first thing I am going to do when I get to heaven is to ask, why me, Lord? Why did you choose a fisherman from Galilee to preach to so many people and to have a part in what you are doing in the first century? And as we begin today to read of the journey of Peter and to journey with Peter from fisherman to founder, we want in our opening reflections this week to first of all meet Peter, to get to know Peter, so that as we journey with Peter, we'll have an understanding of who Peter is. And we want to, over these next few days, to look at his context, his centrality, his character, his change, and his calling. So let's start by looking at his context. Peter's original name, interestingly, was not Peter. It was Simon, son of Jonah. Born in 1 BC in Bethsaida, Jesus gave him the name Peter, or Cephas in Aramaic, which means rock. Peter was the rock on which the early church was built. This new name represented the solid foundation of faith that Peter would come to embody and build in others. Peter was a fisherman by trade. That was what he did. It was his job before Jesus called him to be a different type of fisherman. Not a fisherman of fish, but to be a fisher of men. His life as a fisherman on the Sea of Galilee symbolized humility, symbolized hard work, values that he would later apply to his ministry. Fishermen did not have an easy time in those days. Fishing was not an easy occupation. It called for patience, it called for strength, and it called for perseverance, qualities which Peter would need as a disciple. And Peter was one of the closest disciples of Jesus. Among the 12 disciples, Peter, James, and John formed, as it were, the inner circle. Peter witnessed key events such as the Transfiguration and was often called upon for special tasks, demonstrating the closeness that Jesus had with Peter and the trust that, despite his flaws, he placed in Peter. Well, Peter certainly had a temper, and Peter acted impulsively. Peter's personality was known to be bold and, to be honest, sometimes brash. He cut off the ear of Malchus, a servant of the high priest, in an attempt to defend Jesus during his arrest. His impulsive action reflected his protective love for Jesus. But Peter denied Jesus, as we know, 3 times. In a moment of weakness, Peter denied him, as Jesus predicted he would. It was a humbling experience for this man. And yet Peter was the first disciple to enter the empty tomb of Jesus and see the empty grave clothes. That moment for Peter marked the beginning of his renewed faith and understanding of Jesus' resurrection. Peter was the only disciple who walked on water, albeit briefly. When Jesus walked on water to the disciples' boat, Peter was the only disciple brave enough to put his foot over the side and to step out. Peter played a key role at Pentecost. He emerged as a prominent leader among the apostles. He boldly preached to the crowd. His message led to the conversion of around 3,000 people. Peter was a central figure and became a central figure in the early church. He faced opposition. He preached with courage and he performed miracles. His leadership and his testimony, as we'll come to see in the weeks to come, are prominent throughout his life. And Peter, at the end of his life, was crucified upside down. He was martyred for his faith during the reign of the Emperor Nero. He requested to be crucified upside down, as he felt unworthy to be crucified in the same manner as Jesus had been. Peter died between 64 and 69 AD on the Vatican Hill in Rome. Peter, the context. Peter was a fisherman, and yet Jesus would take that ordinary fisherman on a beach next to the sea and take that fisherman, and through that fisherman he would become the founder of the early church.